Hello, you sexy sat stackers, and welcome to the Bitcoin Bulletin podcast. Today is Wednesday, April 6th, 2022, which means two things. It is Bitcoin 2022 week, and it is DCA Wednesday. Are you ready to get your stack on?
This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as financial advice. All views expressed on this podcast are solely the opinions of the host and or any guests that we might have from time to time. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or to follow a particular investing strategy.
Well, the one thing that we're all definitely excited about is that Bitcoin 2022 is just kicked off in Miami, Florida. I am unfortunately not there. I am in Florida. I was about an hour away this afternoon, but first of all, I had a prior family obligation come up, and then I had some knucklehead smash into my car this evening. So I spent the evening dealing with the local police department because it was also a hit and run. I am fortunately not one of those Lambo dudes because, hey, I would be short Bitcoin. But for most of us that do at least have an automobile, it can tend to be a sore subject when your pride and joy gets smashed by someone who doesn't even care enough to stick around and give you their insurance information. So we're running a little late in getting this online, so we're going to make this short and sweet. We're just going to get our stack on. Real quick, though, a look at the vital statistics. We are currently sitting at a block height of 730,789. Bitcoin is currently ringing in at $43,315 or $2,309 per Satoshi, or correction, 2,309 sats per cuckbuck. That is slightly cheaper than it was last episode. Well, it's more than just slightly cheaper than it was last episode. And I guess that answers the question that a lot of us were wondering, and that is, were we going to see a conference pump? I don't believe we saw a pump last year. I think last year during Bitcoin 2021, we saw the price go down also. So, hey, today was just industry day. Anything's possible. But, or maybe it was just one of those cases of buy the rumor, sell the news, but we did not see a pump, at least as of yet. Although we saw a fairly sizable pump last week. So again, I guess that would be consistent with the buy the rumor, sell the news thing. But as I said, we're not going to focus so much on the price here as we are on growing our stack. And again, the reason we're here on Wednesdays is because every Wednesday we dollar cost average. That's why we refer to it as DCA Wednesday. What is dollar cost average, you might ask? Well, dollar cost average is an investment strategy where you invest your money in equal portions at regular intervals, regardless of price. We started this experiment not a year ago, last July 28th, and we decided that we were going to stack $20 and we were going to stack weekly, and we were going to do so every Wednesday, hence DCA Wednesday. Has a nice ring to it anyway. The reason we chose $20 is because for the average listener to this podcast, most of you are in the United States and Europe, and for most of you, $20 is a reasonable amount of money that you should be able to come up with weekly to add to your stack. The other reason is all the time on Twitter or Reddit or wherever you see people say, hey, is it, first of all, is it too late? And the answer is it's never too late. You know, they say the best time to have bought Bitcoin was 10 years ago, but the next best time is right now. But the other question I see at least as often is, I only have X number of dollars, and is it even worth investing? And usually that number is pretty low, not necessarily 20, but say maybe $50. Sometimes it's even as low as 20. And I wanted to show that if you have $20, even as little as $20 will add up over time. So we're testing out the hypothesis of dollar cost averaging, and that's why we chose $20. But again, do your own research. Pick an investment strategy that suits your needs, and you do you. But we're going to do $20, and we're going to do Wednesday. And we've been doing every Wednesday since July 28th. That being said, this is going to be our 37th stack. We have invested a grand total of we've invested a grand total of $720, of which a decent chunk of that was fees. That's purchased us 1,504,719 sats, and we've done that now at an average cost basis of $47,849.47. And so we're a little bit in the red right now, especially at the current Bitcoin price. We were pretty much broke even last week. And that's because at dollar cost average, you buy the highs and you buy the lows. The idea is that you, over time, you buy you buy at a nice, it smooths out the highs and the lows, and you buy at a nice average price. As a result, we've purchased for as expensive as $65,969, and we've bought as cheap as $36,472. And again, dollar cost averaging, by the way, is a long-term strategy. Holding Bitcoin in general is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You should expect to hold your Bitcoin for a minimum. A lot of people say forever. I intend to hold forever, but a lot of people say 10 years or 4 years. I would say a minimum of 4 years. And that's because in the past, Bitcoin has tended to run in 4-year cycles corresponding to the halving. If you're not familiar with that, that's the reward that miners get for mining Bitcoin is cut in half every 4 years, and it will gradually be cut. It'll gradually be reduced until eventually there is no mining reward other than fees when all 21 million Bitcoin have been issued. Right now, there's just over 19 million of the 21 million Bitcoin in circulation. So because of that halving cycle and the laws of supply and demand, Bitcoin has tended to pump after every 4-year halving cycle. About 6 to 18 months after the halving, we've seen a new all-time high. We did after the 2016 halving, and then we had the 2020 halving. The next halving in 2024 would mean, if that follows the historical pattern, that in late 2024, early 2025, we should see a brand new all-time high, which would definitely be more than what Bitcoin is currently worth. So if that continues to hold true, and it's held true for every year of Bitcoin's existence, that 10 years from now, Bitcoin should be worth significantly more than what you pay for it, whether you bought a little bit higher or a little bit lower. Anyway, you pick a dollar value that you feel comfortable investing, whether that's $20, $100, $1,000, or whatever. It should be an amount that you feel comfortable potentially losing, and that you certainly wouldn't need to pay rent or buy food. This is not play money or gambling money, but pick an amount that suits you, and then pick a interval that suits you. Weekly seems to be a pretty standard time frame for dollar cost averaging. Some people DCA every paycheck, whether that be weekly or biweekly. Some DCA every monthly. There are services now that will let you dollar cost average hourly. I personally think that's a little excessive. I think weekly is enough to catch the trends. By buying weekly, I think you won't miss out on any of the sales, so to speak. And anyway, 6 months to a year is way too short of a time frame to call it a success or a failure. And we intend to keep doing this until Bitcoin either goes to the moon, goes to zero, or you get bored and just stop listening. All right, so without any further ado, let's get right to it. We are going to get our stack on, as usual, using the handy-dandy Cash App. We use the Cash App because I think it's the easiest way to DCA, at least small amounts. It's not necessarily the cheapest, and it might not necessarily be even available where you're at. So do your own research again and pick an app that you feel comfortable investing with, but we're going to use the Cash App. And they will even let you automate your dollar cost average. You can set up recurring buys. You can even place limit orders where it will wait to purchase until a price hits a specified value, price, or a purchase or a sale. We've never sold Bitcoin, and we wouldn't recommend you do either, but we are going to use the Cash App, and that's super easy. So we're going to hit the buy Bitcoin button and tap $20 and confirm, and voila, just that fast, we've purchased an extra 45,147 sats at a purchase price of $43,302.99. And that has brought our stack up to 1,549,866 sats and dropped our average cost basis again Now our average cost basis is only $47,746.06. So that is nice. That's $100 or so. What is that? About $100 cheaper now. One of the advantages of dollar cost averaging, buying at those lower prices. Today was definitely a dip. Last week we paid $47,029, and this week $43,300. So a significant discount. But again, the idea is to keep moving and keep growing that stack. And I promised you I was going to keep this short and sweet. Hopefully you're attending Bitcoin 2020 here in Florida, or at least watching those live streams. Can't wait to see what the big announcement is tomorrow from Jack Mullers, and the big announcement from President Nayib Bukele and whoever else decides they're going to announce something earth-shattering. But in the meantime, keep stacking those sats, you sexy sat stackers.